The studio executive pushed the contract across the desk, like it was contaminated. June 1932. Paramount Pictures. Hollywood, a small office on the third floor with windows that looked out over sound stages and prop warehouses. The room smelled like cigar smoke and old coffee. The walls were covered with framed posters of stars, faces that meant money, faces that sold tickets, faces that the executive had personally helped create. Bing Crosby's face wasn't on any of those walls. He sat across from the executive in a suit that was slightly too big for him. 29 years old. Thin. Pale. His ears stuck out. His hair was thinning already. He had a nice voice, everyone admitted that. But when he opened his mouth to speak, a lazy kind of casualness came out. Not the sharp, rapid-fire delivery of a stage performer, not the crisp diction of a trained actor. Just a slow, easy drawl that made him sound like he was half asleep. The executive's name was Ben Schulberg. Early 50s. He'd run production at Paramount for 6 years. He knew what worked. He knew what sold. He'd turned unknowns into stars, and stars into legends. He'd seen 1,000 hopefuls walk through this office. Most of them left disappointed. "Mr. Crosby," Schulberg said, tapping ash from his cigar into a brass tray, "I'm going to be honest with you." Bing nodded. He didn't look nervous. He looked tired. He'd been performing in nightclubs for years. Radio broadcasts. Vaudeville stages. Small venues where the crowd was drunk and the pay was unreliable. He'd made some recordings. A few of them had sold decently. But nothing had broken through. Nothing had made him more than a name people might recognize if they really thought about it. "You're a good singer," Schulberg continued. "I'll give you that. Your voice is pleasant. You've got decent rhythm. The crooning thing, it's charming in the right context." He leaned back in his chair. "But Hollywood isn't a nightclub. Hollywood is faces, presence, charisma you can see from the back row of a theater. You need to fill a screen, Mr. Crosby, and with all due respect, you don't." Bing didn't react. He just sat there, hands folded in his lap, waiting. "Your voice is fine for radio," Schulberg said. "People don't have to look at you on the radio. But pictures? Pictures are different. We need leading men. We need someone who walks into a room and everyone notices. Someone women want and men want to be." He gestured vaguely at Bing. "You're too thin. Your ears are too big. You've got no stage presence. You mumble. You slouch. Frankly, Mr. Crosby, you look like an accountant who wandered onto the lot by mistake. Someone else might have stood up, might have argued, might have defended themselves or walked out, or at least shown some kind of emotion." Bing just nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. Schulberg blinked. "Okay? Yeah. Okay. I appreciate your honesty." Schulberg frowned. He'd given this speech before. Usually people got defensive. Or angry. Or desperate. This calm acceptance was unsettling. "You understand what I'm telling you?" Schulberg asked. "I'm saying you don't have a future here. I'm saying you should go back to radio or nightclubs or wherever you came from. Because you're never going to make it in Hollywood." Bing smiled. Not a big smile. Just a small, quiet thing at the corner of his mouth. "I heard you. Then why are you still sitting here?" "Because you haven't kicked me out yet." Schulberg stared at him. Then he laughed. Just once. A sharp bark of surprise. "You've got guts, I'll give you that." "Not really," Bing said. "I've just got nothing to lose." Schulberg studied him for a long moment. Then he stubbed out his cigar and stood up. "You want my advice, Mr. Crosby? Find something else to do with your life. This business will chew you up and spit you out. And you won't even know it's happening until you're 40 and broke, and wondering where it all went wrong." Bing stood too. He held out his hand. Thanks for seeing me. Schulberg shook it, more out of reflex than anything else. Good luck, kid. You're gonna need it. Bing walked out of the office, down the stairs, through the lot. He passed sound stages, where crews were building sets, where actors in costume were running lines, where directors shouted instructions through megaphones. He didn't look at any of it. He just kept walking until he reached the gate, showed his visitor pass to the guard, and stepped out onto Melrose Avenue. He stood there for a minute, hands in his pockets, looking at nothing in particular. Then he went back to work. He had a radio show, The Cremo Singer, sponsored by a cigar company. It aired twice a week. 15 minutes of songs. Standards, mostly. Love songs. Ballads. The kind of thing people listened to while they did dishes or folded laundry. The ratings were decent. Not spectacular. But steady. Bing kept singing. He didn't change his style. He didn't try to be louder or sharper or more dynamic. He just sang the way he always had. Slow. Easy. Like he was sitting in your living room instead of standing in front of a microphone. People liked it. They didn't know why. They just knew that when Bing Crosby sang, something in them relaxed. Something loosened. The world felt a little less heavy. And then something unexpected happened. A songwriter named Harry Barris, who'd worked with Bing in a group called the Rhythm Boys, wrote a song. Nothing fancy, just a simple melody with simple lyrics about missing someone, about loneliness, about the ache of wanting something you couldn't have. The song was called I Surrender Dear. Bing recorded it in August 1931, almost a year before his meeting with Schulberg. The record sold modestly. Nothing spectacular, but people kept requesting it. Radio stations kept playing it, and slowly, so slowly, that nobody noticed until it was already happening, it became a hit. Not a big hit, not a chart topper, but the kind of song that settled into people's lives and didn't leave. By the time Bing walked out of Schulberg's office in June 1932, I Surrender Dear had sold over 300,000 copies. More importantly, it had done something rare. It had made people associate Bing Crosby's voice with a feeling, with something real, and aching and true. And Hollywood, despite everything Schulberg had said, noticed. A different executive at Paramount, a man named William LeBaron, had heard the record. He had a daughter who played it constantly. He didn't understand the appeal, but he understood numbers. 300,000 records meant 300,000 people who knew Bing Crosby's name. That meant something. LeBaron called Bing in September, offered him a screen test. Nothing guaranteed, just a chance. Bing showed up in the same too-big suit. Same tired eyes. Same easy slouch. They put him in front of a camera and told him to sing. He sang I Surrender Dear. The director, a young guy named Norman Torog, watched from behind the camera. When Bing finished, Torog didn't say anything for a long time. He just rewound the film and watched it again. Then he called LeBaron. You need to see this, Torog said. Is he good? He's not good. Then why am I? He's something else. I don't know what to call it. Just come look. LeBaron watched the screen test. Bing standing there, hands in his pockets, singing like he didn't have a care in the world. Like the camera wasn't even there. And LeBaron understood. Bing Crosby didn't perform for the camera. He ignored it. He sang like he was alone. Like he was singing to someone who wasn't in the room. And that made everyone watching feel like he was singing to them. Sign him, LeBaron said. Schulberg said, I don't care what Schulberg said. Sign him. Bing got a contract in October 1932. Small part in a picture called The Big Broadcast. He played himself. A radio singer. He sang 2 songs. That was it. The picture came out in November. It was a modest success. Nothing groundbreaking. But people noticed Bing. They noticed the way he seemed completely comfortable on screen. The way he didn't try too hard. The way he made everything seem easy. Paramount gave him another picture. Then another. By 1933, he was appearing in 3 or 4 films a year. Small roles mostly. Supporting parts. But people kept asking about him. Kept wanting more. In 1934, Paramount gave him his first leading role. A musical called We're Not Dressing. He played a sailor. He sang. He acted. He did it all with that same easy, casual style that Schulberg had said would never work. The picture was a hit. In 1935, they gave him Mississippi. Another musical. Another hit. And then, in 1936, something happened that nobody, least of all Bing, expected. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences announced a new category for the Oscars. Best Performance by an Actor in a Musical. It was experimental. Controversial. Some people thought musicals weren't real acting, that singing was a gimmick, that performers like Bing Crosby were novelties, not artists. But the category existed, and Paramount submitted Bing for his performance in Anything Goes, a picture he'd made earlier that year. The ceremony was in March 1937. Bing didn't attend. He said he had a radio show to do. More likely, he didn't think he'd win, didn't think it mattered. But when they opened the envelope, his name was there. Bing Crosby. First actor-singer to win an Academy Award. They called him at the studio. Told him the news. He was in the middle of a recording session. "That's nice," he said. The producer on the other end of the line waited. "That's it? That's all you have to say? What else is there to say? You just made history." Bing was quiet for a moment. "Can I get back to work now?" The Oscar sat on a shelf in his house. He didn't display it prominently. Didn't talk about it much. When reporters asked him how it felt, he shrugged. "It's a nice piece of metal," he said. "Doesn't change what I do." "But you proved everyone wrong," one reporter pressed. "You were told you'd never make it. And now you're an Oscar winner." Bing smiled that small, quiet smile. "I didn't prove anyone wrong. I just kept singing." 6 months after he won the Oscar, Bing ran into Ben Schulberg at a party. It was awkward. Schulberg had been fired from Paramount a year earlier. He was working as an independent producer now. Smaller projects. Less prestige. He saw Bing across the room and walked over. He looked older. Tired. "Congratulations," Schulberg said. "On the Oscar." "Thanks." They stood there in uncomfortable silence. "I was wrong about you," Schulberg said finally. "I told you you'd never make it. And I was wrong." Bing shook his head. "You weren't wrong." Schulberg frowned. "What? You told me I didn't have what Hollywood wanted." "You were right. I didn't. But you won an Oscar." "Yeah. But not because I became what you wanted. I won because Hollywood changed its mind about what it wanted." He paused. "You saw me the way the business saw everyone back then. Like we all had to be the same thing. Loud. Big. Obvious. But people got tired of that. They wanted something quieter. Something that felt more real." Schulberg looked at him for a long moment. "You're saying I was right to tell you no?" "I'm saying you saw the world the only way you knew how. You can't be wrong for that. But I cost you time. I made you doubt yourself." Bing laughed softly. "You didn't make me doubt anything. You just told me the truth as you saw it. What I did with that truth was up to me." He finished his drink. I never wanted to prove you wrong, Mr. Schulberg. I just wanted to sing, and eventually, someone decided that was enough. Schulberg didn't know what to say to that. So he just nodded, shook Bing's hand, walked away. Bing went on to make over 70 films. He became one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. He won another Oscar in 1944 for Going My Way. His recording of White Christmas became the best-selling single of all time. But the thing people remembered most, the thing that defined him, wasn't any particular performance or song. It was the ease, the casualness, the way he made everything look simple, the way he never seemed to care whether you loved him or not. Years later, a film student asked him what advice he'd give to young performers trying to break into Hollywood. Bing thought about it for a long time. "Don't try to be what they want," he said finally, "because what they want changes every 6 months. And if you spend your whole life chasing that, you'll never catch it. Then what should we do? Figure out what you do well. Do it honestly. And don't stop doing it just because someone tells you it's not enough. But what if they're right?" Bing smiled. "Then they're right. And you do it anyway." The student asked one more question. "Do you ever think about that executive? The one who told you you'd never make it?" "Sometimes." "Are you angry at him?" "No. Why not?" Bing was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that became one of the most quoted lines in Hollywood history. "Because he gave me the greatest gift anyone ever gave me. He lowered my expectations. And when you've got nothing to prove, you can't fail. You can only surprise people." He paused. "And that's a lot more fun." Ben Schulberg died in 1957. Bing sent flowers to the funeral. He didn't attend. He was filming in Europe. But he wrote a note. It was short, only 3 sentences. It said, "You were honest with me when no one else was. You told me the truth as you saw it. That's worth more than kindness." The note was found among Schulberg's belongings. His daughter kept it for years. She was asked about it once, late in her life. She said her father had read that note a dozen times before the funeral, that he'd carried it in his pocket, that near the end, when he was too sick to work, when most of Hollywood had forgotten him, he'd taken it out and read it again. "I think it was the only thing that made him feel like maybe he hadn't wasted his whole life," she said. The interviewer asked what she thought Bing meant by it. She didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, "I think he meant that my father saw him clearly, saw his weaknesses, saw his limitations, and that being seen, even when it hurts, is better than being invisible." She paused. "I think he meant that the man who tells you no is just as important as the man who tells you yes, maybe more important. Why? Because the yes men make you comfortable. The no men make you prove something. To them, to yourself, to the world." She folded the note carefully and put it back in its envelope. "My father told Bing Crosby he'd never make it in Hollywood. And he was right. The Bing Crosby my father imagined, the one who tried to be what everyone wanted, never existed. But the real one did." "Yes," she said softly. "The real one did. And he became something my father never imagined. Something better. Do you think your father understood that before he died?" She looked out the window. "I think that note means he did." Bing Crosby died in 1977 on a golf course in Spain, doing exactly what he wanted to be doing. His Oscar sits in a museum now. A small plaque underneath explains its significance. First actor-singer to win the award. Revolutionary performance style. Changed the way Hollywood thought about natural acting. But the plaque doesn't mention Ben Schulberg. It doesn't mention the office where Bing was told he'd never make it. It doesn't mention the contract that was pushed across the desk like garbage. Because that's not the story people want to hear. They want to hear about triumph. about proving people wrong, about revenge. But Bing never wanted revenge. He just wanted to sing. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.